I'm Angie Berkey, and this is What She Said, a podcast about the things women talk about when we're finally telling the truth. Let's get into it. Welcome back, everyone, to What She Said. It's so good to be back with you all again this week, and I have a special treat. Everybody is a special treat, but this week I have an especially special treat because my friend Lindsay Skatrud is here with me, and we're going to be talking all things motherhood, life transitions, all the things, because she has been in a vortex herself the last couple of years, and we're going to get into it. So, Lindsay, hello.
Hi. It's funny you say vortex because this morning I did describe my daughter as a tornado. So, yes, good call out
She's
there.
two. So
Yes. Hmm.
I don't know if she has,
Yeah.
really any other way to be.
No, you're right. And love that for her.
I do
Not as
too.
much for me all the time, but for her, for sure.
I have a feeling that parenting a girl at this age and stage in your life is just for you a whole exercise in letting go and letting her be her own person. And also maybe different today than it would have been had you been doing this 10 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think about that a lot, actually, that I I think that she waited until she knew that I was ready for her. Because
Right?
like I never had this draw to like, I need to be a mom. It was kind of a thing I assumed I would do, but I wasn't part of the reason why I was 35 when I had her was because it was like my husband was going to be turning 40 and he said, listen, if we're going to do this, we need to do it. And so it was more the clock, right, than anything else. And when I was like, oh, we're supposed to be doing this now, she showed up for me. I haven't spoken to a lot of people about this, so this is an awkward
I
thing
love
to
it.
just reveal to the world via podcast, I guess. But there are two really vivid images for me. One of them, there's this Lizzo song called Special. So that album came out, that song played, and the first time I heard it, I envisioned standing and dancing with this baby girl in my arms, and I was like, well, that was weird. And I told my husband that, and he was like, what? That's how we're decided we're gonna have a child, is that you heard a song and had a vision, and now here we go. But then there was a point I was sitting on our couch, and the way that our house is laid out, I looked up and I saw a little girl run out and run into the room. And that's been a trip because that's so much part of our regular flow right now. So to have had that is crazy. And so for me, it wasn't, I was like, oh, I need to be a mom. It was that this creature said, hey, I'm here. You seem ready for me. Let's go. And there is a lot of just how I'm much more able to handle her, allow her to be herself in this stage of life
Yeah,
than I would have been if I was 25 having a child. I think about that a lot
totally.
with my mom. My mom was 24 when she had me, and I'm the oldest. And there are so many times I'm like, I cannot even believe, and like so many people do that, right? I'm like, I don't know how people are doing this.
Right?
Like, there's no way. That's why everyone's stressed because it's a lot.
I know. Or at least maybe I know that you and I are basically a generation apart also, but like I think about the
Yes, yeah.
generation even behind you. I have two nieces who are raising children at that age, right? The
Hmm.
age you're talking about, the mid-20s, right? And so for me, I think what a blessing those children are because they're getting parents in the generation that my nieces are in.
Yeah,
Because I think that I would have been so uptight if I had had a child in my mid-20s. And I
yes.
see how they are just able to kind of accept them as they are and be a little easier than I think I would have been had I done that 20 years earlier.
Yeah, that's
Like,
interesting you say that. Yes, because I have a couple former students who are now having children. And as I've talked to them, yeah, even though they're 10 years younger than me, they're way more chill about the parent.
Mhm.
Like they're much more, which is kind of where I'm at too, I guess. They're much more critical of all of the systems that do not support their parenting than
Yeah.
they are stressed about the parenting itself. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. You're right. The way of the world probably impacts that a lot too.
I think it does. I mean, and I don't know. maybe I'm projecting a bit, but I know that traditionally, at least for the first 40 years of my life, probably still am a pretty type A person. I feel like I'm shifting a
Yeah.
little bit in that regard, but I feel as though, at least from what I've had the privilege of seeing, so many people who are parenting young ones today, and maybe this is just within my own sphere, but seem to be a bit more type B. And I think children benefit from that type of parenting a bit more.
Yeah.
And I might be assuming, but I think you probably would be more like me as well, but you've been able to put
That's
on
funny.
your hat of, no, my child is going to be my child and
Yeah.
she gets to be who she is, and I don't have to project my things onto her.
I have recently plugged in both astrology and human design charts for me, my husband, and our daughter. And I recently have talked about, like, oh, what's our purpose? What's my purpose individually based on this chart? And when AI has analyzed those, when Gemini has done, like, here's how you work together, the charts explicitly call out that her purpose entering our life, both me individually and my husband individually and us together, is to get us to chill out a little bit. That is how our charts work together, is her being like,
Yeah.
hey, it's okay to have fun and be
Yeah.
exciting. And so, yeah, interesting you said that, because definitely that's a piece of the having her older too,
Yeah.
when I'm more established and whatever else, is that I'm more comfortable being okay with that, right? And I am lucky that in a professional space, I have a leader who is the same age as you. Actually, that's something that I think is really cool for me, is that I have a lot of women in my life who are starting to approach the empty nest phase. And so it's just interesting to be entering motherhood as they're, like, so many of you are exiting active motherhood or getting ready
Yes.
for that. And so
Yes.
one of her missions is to let us parent how we need to and not have work get in the way of that,
Hmm.
because it was not her experience, right? And so I'm also lucky that I have that support, and I can, in addition to being confident in myself, I also was strategic about being in, oh, this next job I have is going to be where I potentially make this life choice, and so really building space where I could do that transition well, and yeah, and having support around women who have gone through that, right? Women who
Yeah.
were the first in many ways to have to try to chart that.
To navigate those. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I also think you're catching me at a stage. We've been friends for about 5 years. Our friendship has developed at a time in my life. Well, been through lots of ups and downs, but I've had to chill out. I've had to learn to relax on myself and to give myself more gentleness and kindness this last 5 years that you've known me. And the first 5 years of my son's life and the last 5 years of my son's life have looked very, very different. And he's 17. So there's a spectrum in between there as
Yeah.
well. But I think that you're catching me at a point where I also have had to learn for sure in the last 10 years that he came here to do his thing, not the thing I want to dictate for him. So, and he's a manifester. So, for those of you listening, you know that basically means that his whole thing in life is, I'm going to do things my way. So,
Yes.
I've had to learn that my way is not his way. And in fact, you're going to get a kick out of this because today he came home from work and we're in the kitchen and I'm like, I'd really appreciate it if when you stand and eat in here, just the floor gets really messy. And he's like, hey, Mom, how about you just say, could you please clean the floor up after you eat in here? And he's telling me, he's trying to teach me how not to be passive aggressive.
That's funny.
And so he did it 2 more times after that. And I was like, stop correcting me. Is that direct
Right.
enough?
Yep. First of all.
And so he's parenting me, I'm parenting him, we're parenting each other. And that is what I think the beauty of being where you are in your life. Even the fact that you were willing to look into, how is this being, what is my role in her life? What is my husband's role in her life? What's her role in our lives? What's our system roles? It's all just so different than anything we would have grown up with. And I think it's really cool that she's getting to come into this family that's aware of her uniqueness and her specialness and honors that for her. So it's pretty fun.
Thank you. I'm glad this is recorded. Well, like 20 years from now. Like, do you know? Not even 20, 12 years from now. You're
We'll see
so
if she
lucky to
agrees.
be here.
We'll see if she
Yeah.
agrees. So you mentioned work too. So obviously this transition, this vortex, like we mentioned, the last 2 years of motherhood, but you're also deeply in this very prime phase of your career in your life too. And as we were talking about this episode, we were really kind of thinking through everything is interconnected, and we know that. But it feels like you are at a really interesting precipice in your life, or just jumping into some pretty, I don't know, main character energy, like big
Thank you.
things in your
Yes.
life. And I want to talk a bit about that and how
Yeah.
you have come to see and recognize that these things are all very intertwined at this moment in time for you.
So here's the thing. Part of why I was resistant to becoming a mom in the first place is because I don't want that to become my entire identity. I don't want to be just this person's mom. And then now that I'm in it, and that is literally the frame of all of my things, right? And so it feels silly to be like, well, let me connect this back to the same thing. But for me, one thing that is helpful to have learned is that there's literally your brain gets rewired. Your brain totally shifts. So I'm glad to be doing this whole journey when that research has been done and has been publicized. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm not just abandoning all of my feminism for motherhood and all of these things, right? That I felt, yeah, like I felt like I could not possibly girl boss, be this independent woman, and also be a mom, that it had to be one or the other. I do wonder sometimes if I had been, I don't know that I would have known how to be a mom to a boy. I'm like, I don't know that I don't think I could have done that. I don't think that I have the skill set to raise a boy in this world that we're in. I have the skill set to raise a girl to fight against all of this stuff. My husband would have handled it. We would have been fine. We would have figured
Yeah,
it out, but like it just
totally.
is not, it's so not my wheelhouse, right? And so stepping into this is the thing that has shown me that I don't have to pick one or the other. I was so convinced beforehand that it needed to be one or the other.
Mm.
Being in it, I'm like, oh, no, I was able to be pregnant and continue to evolve professionally through that as my body's going through a marathon on a daily basis. I was able to spend the next 10 months turning blood into milk. I look at this human, I'm like, I created this human. And like she's walking around because my body 3D printed her and then kept her alive just by my blood turning into this thing. It's crazy to me that that's possible. And so that to me, I'm like, well, if I could do that, surely I can both have a small person in my house that I care for and also be successful professionally. And I think it really that sense of personal power and really seeing differently how much systems are not set up to support families, moms or dads, right? Because
Right.
my husband also we were like, hey, how about in addition to having this child, why don't we both try and then accelerate in our careers at the same time? That seems fun.
Right.
Let's just see what all shakes out, right? And so seeing how just systems are not built for people to do both of those things well.
Yeah.
And so I'm going through this transition as I'm also able to enter rooms where I can impact culture and policy in my workplace. And I'm in a field where it's more more male dominant than
Mhm.
female dominant. And I'm talking to all of these men who want to be able to see their kids more, be home more, like all of these things. And I'm able to help change that. And I have a
Mhm.
different perspective because I'm also experiencing it. Right. And so I don't know, all of those things
Yeah.
together, it seems on paper, it would be like, "Oh my gosh, that's so much to do at the same time," but the lived experience is how perfect that this is all aligning and informing each other, and really the reason I'm able to do all that stuff and level up in that way is because it's all happening at the same time and working
Yeah.
together.
I don't know if this is the best analogy or not, but I do hear that goldfish grow to the size of their environments, right? And so it feels like you just got put into a much bigger pond or a lake
Yeah,
or whatever, and you are growing to that capacity because your capacity has increased as she has come into your life and work has
yeah,
continued to expand and gotten bigger. And you're just ready. You're ready for these next steps. And they are simultaneously happening for a very specific reason, right?
yeah. Well, and you know what? That's interesting you say that too. But something I was very intentional about was clearing space for her.
Mhm.
It was, hey, I need a job where I know that it's as confined to the 8 hours of the workday as it can be, and it's geographically close and all of these things. And I was very intentional about I don't know, going into the cave. And like I, in my head was like, nope, we're doing this ancient approach to this transition to motherhood. And I had been volunteering. I stopped, like, I took away
Mhm.
some of that as we were starting to talk about conceiving. When I knew she was going to be born, the volunteering that was still left, I stepped away from that. I cleared out stuff because I knew that if I didn't, it would be really easy to resent her for existing.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to do that.
Of
Right.
course.
And like I knew it's knowing that she's going to be our only one, it was like, I don't not that like a second child is a redo, but like a very conscious, we are making this decision to bring her in here. And so
Yep.
I can't then punish her for being here because I chose to bring her here, right? And so I was very purposeful around, we're going to let everything go, figure out what kind of space she needs, and then once we figure that out, then we'll start kind of adding stuff back in. And so I
Yeah.
do feel like that's a piece of right now, it's feeling like, oh, stuff's taking off is because it was like, I gave myself 2 years because I'm like, well, all the stuff I'm reading says your nutrients take about like, like I leaned into like, the science and the biology of it. I'm like, okay, well, then I'm
Beautiful.
not gonna, I was in the best shape of my life before getting pregnant. And then I
Mhm.
gained 50 pounds for this not even 7 pound being. And I'm like, what the hell? There had to have been a second secret one in there because that's crazy. Like,
We
so
did think you were
like
having twins at one
I
point.
many people. And I'm like, seriously? I'm like, no, it was just her signaling, hello, I need a lot of your space. So you need
Yeah.
to like, I'm going to be here and very vibrant. And so like, I, I, I wanted to, I wanted to make sure that I knew from the beginning that I was letting her be who she needed to be, right? And so I
Yeah.
knew that to do that, I needed to just like clear out, figure out who she was. And then once I knew what she needed from me, okay, then I can start to add stuff back in. And so I think that part of why I'm feeling this huge momentum shift or like really feeling stuff take off is because I I didn't just let stuff get added back in, right? Or keep the stuff. It was like,
Yeah.
no, we're getting rid of everything and
Yeah.
only bringing back in the things that have meaning for whatever reason, but things
Additive
that
value.
are
Yeah.
meaningful to me or are that I feel like I'm contributing or whatever. And so that like, I don't know, like it feels very to be like, well, I picked all these good things and that's what I have. But like true, like there just was intention behind it, right?
Right.
I didn't just let it, well, whatever falls into my lap is gonna fall there. Like I was purposeful around what was there. And so then because that's all that's there, I think that's why stuff's really taking off for me in a lot of spaces.
I think you're absolutely right. And one of the things I want to double click on is that you are one of the most boundaried people I've ever met in my life. And it's
Thank you.
such an inspiration to me. Like, you're a huge expander and you might be 14 years younger than me, but you've been telling me for years you need better boundaries. You need better
Yeah.
boundaries. You need better boundaries. And you've been
Yeah.
teaching me this slowly but surely. And I think many of the things that you're talking about now in terms of how intentional you were about your lead up to conceiving, to the period of time while you were carrying her, and then in the aftermath, and how you're just so unapologetic about making choices that you know are right for you and that are the only thing that are going to serve you or your family or your child. And you do it in a way, and I mean this in the best way possible, ruthlessly. And what we were talking about recently too is that as you are coming out of this haze of this first two
Yeah.
years, right? You are recognizing and reconnecting in with parts of yourself, with friendships that you haven't been able to devote as much time or attention to that you might wish that you could have. But you also understand that that was for a reason and you can't be sorry. But you're recognizing now that you have more capacity for those. And so as all of this growth is happening in motherhood and in your career, it also feels like it's happening in your personal life where things are expanding a bit again in your ability to and capacity to show up as it comes back. How did you get so boundaried?
I
Do
don't
you
know.
like
Isn't that
is this
interesting?
something
Like
you're
I
aware
have
of?
no idea.
No?
I don't know. I don't know. Cause that is something that there people in both professional, personal, like, all of my areas of life call that out. I have no idea why
Okay,
that
so
is.
I'm not the only one who notices this about
No,
you.
yeah, correct. It because that trickles out at work too. Like
Yeah.
it is something that other people start doing more of because they see that I do it and like the world keeps going, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, well,
Yeah.
hey, yeah, but I don't know why
Yeah.
that is.
Well, thank goodness
It
it
is
did.
a flaw sometimes though, right? Lean a little heavy into protecting the peace sometimes. The other day, my mom was like, your brother, I talked to him earlier and he would like you to respond to any of the recent texts that you sent. I'm like, well, he knows better than to expect that I'm going to be on my phone ever. So I like that's
Yep.
also not a healthy way to live, right? So it's like, I do need to come a little bit, but that's probably what this re-entering the world after 2 years. Actually, there was a point where I was talking to my brother and I was like, in her early childhood, I really just wanted to be present and not be on my phone. He's like, this is new in her. I'm like, all right, well, thanks.
You've
You're
never
right.
wanted to be
It's
on your
not.
phone all
This
that much.
is,
Let's be really clear.
yeah.
You
So
were this
yes.
way definitely pre-child. So yes, let's
Correct.
yeah, this is not a new thing, but it's
Yeah.
still an inspiration and I love it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
thank you.
yeah, I've
Thanks.
always wondered a little bit where that came from for you. But
Yeah.
who
I don't
knows?
know.
It's
Yeah.
just your design. It's how you were. It's how you were
Yes.
brought in.
Correct. We are boundaried. I got a lot of Capricorn. I have stellium in Capricorn in my fourth house. The fourth house is all about home stuff, right? And like, your foundations and lineage and all of those things. And Capricorn is a very structured, I don't want to say rigid, but earthy, like we're doing this, blah, blah. So
Mhm.
I have a ton of my birth chart is a lot of personal planets and some other things too in this sturdy, structured home part of my chart. And so I
Mhm.
think that's part of it, that I just
Yeah.
am very structured and protective of that home space, which probably that plays into a lot of like now adding motherhood to that, like, yeah, that is my purpose. And so how do I make work align with that? How do I help build systems for other people to also have, like, that totally informs the way that I approach a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing about finding astrology and human
Mhm.
design late in life, right? It's been a lot of, I'm like, oh, interesting. Yes. I'm
Yeah.
not like a total weirdo. Here's this thing that says that actually is just how I'm wired. And so I need to be
Yeah.
okay with that.
Yeah. And it's finding those things within it that, like, I think we know plenty of people who can say, well, astrology will tell you whatever you want it to mean or say or whatever, and you can make anything fit. But the reality, as you have experienced it and have experienced it, is that it just kind of, for us, has validated a lot of the things that we are learning about ourselves along the way now. And we're like,
Yeah.
oh, that does make sense. And so then when we lean into what is more natural for us anyway, the way that human design helps us understand, like, leaning into your design is something that will help you find a lot more ease in your life. And it will help you really lean into the areas that are going to be very fruitful for you, regardless of
Mhm.
what those are, because everybody's so individual. But and then to stop fighting to try to develop in areas that maybe aren't as well suited to you or
Yeah.
haven't ever
Yes.
felt like easeful, right? And so it's about leaning into flow state is kind of
Mhm.
how I feel about when we learn more about our astrology, our human design, or whatever those modalities are that you might want to look at. Um, it does feel like it just opens up a lot more ease, grace, peacefulness, and, flow in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
How I experience it anyway.
I agree. Hmm.
Mhm. So all of that in mind, where did you start? What was your entry point into some of those things with regard to, like, some of these, you said earlier, "Are we get into my witchiness?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah. Honestly, well, that's so I this weekend did make a joke to my mom because my mom took my daughter hiking. It's a thing that they do together. They're out in nature.
That's
It is
adorable.
funny because my daughter's chart leans heavily into she like wants to be outside in nature and like digging in the dirt and whatever. I'm like, great, love that y'all can make this happen
We do that
together.
together
Yes, there's
while
a
you're doing
lineage
something
tie
else.
there. Yes, correct. While I'm on the couch and not out in the forest. And so my mom took some of the little the treasures, so like pine cones and like sticks and whatever. She's like, I'm
Mhm,
gonna take these home for my I don't know, spell jar. Like she said it sarcastically, but like she's also kind of coming into some of these more spiritual things at the same time that I am, which is like an
mhm.
interesting piece. Actually, as I'm saying that, something that is really interesting about that is that when we told both of our parents that we were going to be having a baby, my mom, when they were over, it was like we had just found out like a week before. Like we told them right away. And my mom said that she had been getting ready she had randomly saved random, oh, I bought this little outfit, whatever, like prepping just in case having a grandchild. And my husband and I had been married 10 years. And so everyone kind of had been like, well, they're probably not, they're not doing this, obviously. They like the dogs and traveling and whatever. And so she was getting ready to get rid of a lot of this stuff. And she was like, I just this week was going to get rid of this Mickey Mouse outfit. And then I didn't because all of a sudden I felt like I needed to keep it for some reason. I didn't know why. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's great. Like, so it's funny that that happened. And what I said to my mom this weekend, I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure she is a little bit of a witch. Truly, her entering and started to give me those signs was when I kind of started
Yeah, the
this journey.
premonition into the
Yes,
living
correct.
room.
So I think really all of this is that she was like, hello, here I am, powerful beyond measure.
Right.
So you need to learn about these things so that you
Right.
understand what I'm coming at you with. The thing that I really was paying attention to is like human design as a parenting tool.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably too, that's nice that there's a thread through all of these things. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
The idea of parenting the human who was here and not following all the experts and like, well, I'm supposed to parent this way. Well, this isn't a robot. This
Right.
is a human with a soul, and who are they? And that's who you're going to parent. And so I really have not paid attention to any of the quote unquote experts around parenting. And I've leaned into human design people, astrology people, like people who are talking about Intuit, like all of that stuff is the lens that I've used for parenting. And it is, I think, a piece of why I don't get as stressed with my 2-year-old tornado is because her whole chart is, in addition to being a toddler, this also is who she's going to be later in life. So buckle in. Yeah. You're going to have to get comfortable with it. And so, yeah, like that, it really, in parenting is where I have started to pay attention to these things, but then I've applied them in professional space, in relationship, in all of this stuff. And really, to come back to what you were saying before, people can say what they want about it and whatever. To me, it's like, whether you believe it or not, it at least gives me language to the stuff that I think and feel but can't totally communicate to other people. This at least gives me a way to put words to the stuff that I know to be true, but at least I can frame it in a way. I don't go around talking to everybody about my natal placements. Like that's not the language I'm using, but the descriptions of the stuff I talk about approach and whatever. And it makes it easy to use it as a communication tool more than anything else. And again, I think that intention and using that in all these spaces is why it works, because it's something that just helps me bring all this stuff up here into a way that I can actually talk to other people about it.
Yeah. I also think yes to everything you said about human design as a parenting tool, because I have definitely been using that for my son too, since I learned his design. I don't know, it's been a long time now, probably 10 years ago. And I think that it has also, a lot of people will comment about what an easy child I have, or what a nice person. It has nothing to do with me. He is who he is, right? And like it does have, parenting is an important influence for sure. But I think in many ways, at least my hope is that he feels as though he has been allowed to be who he is, which makes him feel like he's walking through life a little bit happier, right? So who knows? I don't know. But the other space, again, all the threads that run through all of these things is very clear, because human design also as a tool at work is very powerful, because I don't know if you've ever used it. For those listening, Lindsay and I both have our feet in the realm of human resources in our careers. And I have used it as a team building tool. I have used it as a way to help people understand conflict at work in different ways. And I found it really, really relevant. And certain other, like Enneagram is great, Myers-Briggs is great, StrengthsFinders is great. There's so many tools that you can use out there. And human design is an interesting one to bring into the workplace, but when you can describe it in a way that is just really helping people understand how they are wired as opposed to another person, and help them understand how they can communicate differently in effort to kind of bridge some of those gaps, it's been really powerful for me at times with certain of my clients.
Well, there's a lot of overlap with them too. Like we use Clifton Strengths at my work. And so like, one of the things I have ongoing in we use ChatGPT as our AI at work, like that's the approved tool. And so I have in there, at some point I plugged in a screenshot of my human design chart, a screenshot of my birth chart with astrology, and then also gave it my top 5 on Clifton Strengths. And there is overlap with all of them, right? Like Clifton Strengths,
Absolutely.
it's the patriarchal way that we can talk about these things, right? And that's a safe
Totally.
one to talk about, but it says the same things. It's
Yeah.
just
Totally. It
approved.
absolutely does.
So
It's funny that you say that because the other day, so I'm working with my best friend and we're trying to do a bunch of things together right now. And so we were trying to figure out the ways that we work best together. So we pulled out our human design and we pulled out Enneagram and like same. It's all of it dovetails very well together because they're just different ways of helping us understand ourselves. That's really all there is to any of
yes.
this.
Well,
Yeah.
and what's interesting to me too, I have tried to, so I had a career transition. I was in education, and then now I'm in a corporate space. And so I have tried to figure out like starting over kind of, right? It's just a new way to look at what you're doing and whatever else. I do a lot of the same types of stuff, but just in a different environment. But it definitely learning what good is and how I measure success and whatever, that just was a shift. And so what I paid attention to as I was doing that transition was what people called out about what they were bringing me in to talk about and what types of things they appreciate my perspective on and what they called out as strengths. And even that stuff. So something that in my job right now, that a lot of the executive team appreciates and brings me in for and wants my opinion on is pattern recognition stuff. So my VP is very explicit in saying, you are really good at this. And so that's one of the things that I need you bringing to me as we talk about these things. And I'm also in a role where I just have, in addition to being able to recognize the patterns, I have like a lot of spots where I'm getting inputs. In addition to being good at recognizing patterns, I'm also in a role where I'm able to have all those inputs just based on how often I talk to people and the different types of people I talk about. So that's something that other people recognize as a strength of mine, a thing that they bring me in for. All of my charts, that is a thing that comes through on there, that's like a strength of mine. It's something I'm supposed to be doing. It's also in my Clifton Strengths top 5, the combination of the 5 that I have leads to all of that stuff, right? So it is saying the same thing. It's like self-awareness and talking to other people about that and how am I actually connecting to the people I'm with as opposed to roboting through the world and expecting everybody to be cookie cutter and whatever.
Yeah. How all these things are so intertwined.
Yeah.
Well, folks, we keep having technical difficulties with Lindsay's recording. And so we've now rebooted this a couple times. But I think maybe
Yes.
what that's telling us is might be time to wrap this
It's
conversation.
enough wisdom
We've
for
had
this
enough.
time.
But the
We
good
gotta
news
come
is
back later.
Lindsay's never off the hook. She has got the infinite invitation to come back to what she said at any time she wants. So the other thing I do want you to address before we go is your shirt. Reading is an act of
revolution.
Yeah.
Yes. I like books.
That's
my
exactly it.
explanation.
And your daughter is already at age 2,
Yes.
probably more well-read than me.
Listen, yeah, that girl, it is, yeah, it's an interesting nature versus nurture situation for sure. But yeah, she sees books as the same as the toys. Like she grabs them just as much, which
I
is
love that.
lovely.
I love that so much.
Yeah, it's exciting for me. In case I don't wear this again in the future, this was a gift from a friend of mine who I taught with when I was teaching. So in addition to this soul thing or whatever, these witchy tendencies, I guess maybe I had glimpses of them before pregnancy. But she's someone who, when I interviewed, like she was on an interview panel and she was someone who was like, I'm supposed to work, like was somebody who I connected with and knew I was, and then like we totally vibed. And she at one point, got me this sweater as a gift.
That's
so
awesome. We could talk forever. We will do it again for sure. We know this already, but yeah, thank you so much for coming on, for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you for having me. This was a lovely debut to the podcasting space. I'm very glad.
I'm so glad we could
Thank
be your
you.
first. Lovely.
Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening. So glad that Lindsay could join us this week, and we will talk to you all soon. Thanks for listening. If today's conversation stayed with you, share it with someone you love or leave us a review. And if it sparked a story of your own, I'd love to hear from you. I'll see you next time on What She Said.